Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Many of us have at least seen parts or if not all of the Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump that took place just last week, October 22nd. Well, it was filmed October 22nd in Joe Rogan's Austin studio. And guys, if there's anything we know about Joe Rogan, it's that his interviews can go 2 to 3 hours long. And that's one of those things where if you're not a natural, if you're not somebody that's good in conversation, if you're not a good conversationalist, his podcast won't be for you. And I mean, the longest talker I've seen on Joe Rogan has been Neil deGrasse Tyson. Trump, we've got a few days left until the election. People are already casting their votes. A lot of mail-in ballots have been already made. They're declaring Nevada as a Trump win already. I've seen so many different podcasters say things like, well, this is neck and neck and we don't know yet. But here's the thing for me. If Trump does not win in this election, for me personally, I feel that it would be a rigged election. Even though Joe Rogan is known for this lighthearted approach, I feel like he seemed to shift into a more sharper exchange with Donald Trump. He didn't seem as light as he normally goes. He had a more challenging tone. He had a more thoughtful tone. He did not want to seem or appear like he was being just a lighthearted banter. He did offer a few compliments to Trump, but he also pushed back a lot. I felt like he was consciously trying to present himself as a impartial interviewer. He also seemed to be pressuring Trump on a lot more issues than he would, say, a Barack Obama. Several times I saw him literally cut Donald Trump off. I don't know. I felt like this devil's advocate role was not becoming of Joe Rogan. It's not his style. He had to remember some of the key political themes of this election has been the border crisis, illegal immigration for the Republican Party. Now, for the Democrat Party, that initiative has just been solely focused on women's reproductive rights, which is a non-starter for me. I have no interest in that. I feel like it's the stupidest thing ever. And I'm so glad that Trump, and I guess the judges went ahead and said, no, we'll leave this to the states. No, here's the thing. I think eventually America is going to end up being another civil war. And that's just my take on it. I believe that people are so far divided on moral issues, on spiritual issues, on just issues overall that has to do with, just thought processes on how you handle things, that people absolutely abhor living amongst people who are completely different from them. They do. And it's why one of the things I really truly believe in is that the Western philosophy, just say lawlessness, crime, sexual immorality, those type of things, does not jive well with Eastern philosophies. Think Muslim. The Muslim culture, women are all covered up. Women are technically like property of their husbands. There's a lot of differences in the two cultures that colliding those two is only a recipe for disaster. So back to the topics, the themes during that conversation with Joe Rogan. One of the things was deregulation versus tariffs. That really stood out for me, with Trump's claim, that business leaders really value the deregulation more than, the tariffs. To me, it really stood out. That means that people literally want a laissez-faire. They want a hands-off government approach. They don't want government in their business, telling them how to operate their business, what they can and cannot do. And it really, when I was really young, I dated a guy that was a real estate developer. And I learned so much from that guy because I saw how hard it was to get any building coded properly in order to have it built. All of the different things, the hoops you have to jump through. There's so many things involved with building. And also it helps that my stepfather was an electrical engineer and had his own contracting company. And he has always been an entrepreneur, but he also taught me a lot when it came to business and understanding that it's building connections with people. You saw there Trump talking about, I didn't have any issues. I worked with these guys. I'd get things, permits and things, immediately because it's a connection you have with these people, right? They trust you. They know that you've done it before. You can do it again. some regulation, in my opinion, is necessary in anything and everything, because, if you don't have a little oversight, sometimes you might miss something. Also, and I think many of us heard it was a little tinge of Trump saying things about the tax policy, their discussion on taxes, and Joe Rogan alluding to the fact that Kamala's progressive look at these policies aimed at the rich, is that a good idea? And Trump saying, no, that would drive businesses away. Obviously, Republicans do believe in trickle-down economics. I personally don't believe in that. That's one aspect of the Republican Party that I don't really agree with. I don't align with. I've been around enough rich people, and I say rich people meaning business people who make, a lot of money. And trickle down doesn't really happen, in my opinion. I've never seen it happen. What happens is they get the money, they keep the money, and they stay rich. I think there should be incentives, right? Incentives for rich people to want to donate. Incentives for rich people to want to uplift others and bring others into the fold, allowing for, on-the-job training and things like that. Programs that allow people to get these higher earning jobs without being saddled with student loans like I am. You know what I mean? That debt really puts a strain on the American people. I mean, if you're giving money away to illegals coming here and they're able to go to college, they're able to, have all these benefits, why not do that for the people that are already here? So I do agree to some extent with Trump on that, but to some level, I don't know fully how that would work. To not tax the rich, I believe the rich do need to pay their fair share. That's the part of me that's a little bit more on the left. This is why I've always been an independent, because I've never had a complete 100% acceptance of one party over the next. I've always been a person that's kind of like, I look at the issues and I say, what issues make sense, what doesn't? And if they don't make sense to me, help me understand how they would work and how they would benefit me in the long run. How would, cutting taxes straight across the board and giving people like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates more take home, how would that benefit me if these companies don't really do anything back? They just use that money and put their money overseas and offshore banking, and they do all their illegal crap that they do. How does that help the American public? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. And should people who don't make as much pay less? I mean, that's a real conversation that a lot of people would want to have. Then the other thing that he talked about, former national security advisor John Bolton came up. Trump justified hiring Bolton, whom he referred to as a maniac or a crazy man or a wild man. I don't remember the exact term he used, but I thought that was interesting. And, by surrounding himself with people that are like these loose cannons, it reminds me of like being out in the 90s. And if you went out with the guys and the girls that were crazy people just knew to keep their distance versus people who are sane and actually, wallflowers and straightforward, you have a likelihood of being picked on a little more. Another interesting aspect of that conversation was when it shifted to Gavin Newsom and California's homelessness crisis and the cleanup effort that happened there when Chinese President Xi Jinping visited, and how effective they were. Trump criticized the state's management of this, and he said, what he sees there in California in general is a lack of common sense when it comes to everything. With homelessness, their neglected forests, their forest fires that they always have every summer because they just can't clean up the tinder, which is all the leaves, and clean up the forest and, clear out the pathways of the forest. That was interesting because, that's something that it's common sense to many people, but, California, you have people there that are just really, really, just in my opinion, nutballs. Now, one of the biggest things that I think many of us saw was that Joe Rogan made the observation that Trump was made into a target, noting how like the celebrities and the press and the mainstream media who once celebrated Trump during the Apprentice era, Apprentice being his show, that was a hit for like, Trump said 10 years that show was on, or 12 years. Good grief, guys. Like, that just tells you how ingrained he was in the media, in the mainstream news, and they loved him. And Trump obviously echoed Joe Rogan's sentiment and said, yeah, I don't know what happened. I have no idea how these media professionals, quote unquote, if you want to call them that, can just go off the rails like this. They once loved me. In fact, he said that he knows a lot of people who are still in media that can only secure work, work being at media outlets like CNN, if they criticize Trump. I mean, this further, to me, it feeds into his narrative of having, a biased media treatment and being a target. Trump, you were made into a target. And still to this day, we have media outlets likening him to Hitler and saying that his ex-employees say that he wanted a Hitler-esque military. The stuff that they're saying, it's awful. It's almost as bad as what Barack Obama is doing right now, labeling Black people in America, Black people, anybody who is of color, I guess you can say, that don't want to vote for Kamala Harris. It's toxic. It's definitely scary. And like I've said in many comments that I've made on other people's videos, this is putting a target on other people's backs, primarily Black people in America. They're going to look at you. They're going to look at people of color and say, you didn't vote for Kamala? What is wrong with you? Such a racist thing to say. I should not have to be relegated to voting for a woman of color because I'm a woman of color. That is absurd. I really thought it was interesting how the interview ended. If anyone saw the ending, it was Trump basically ending it abruptly, saying that he has to leave. He had some speech that he had to do. It felt like a very spontaneous exit that you might see with like an old friend losing track of the time and ending the conversation that has been so engaging up to that point. But interestingly enough, despite his usual flair for personal attacks, Trump refrained from going after Kamala Harris. This is surprising to me, given his past rhetoric. He's called her a lot of stupid things. He said she's a low IQ person, things like that. I feel like those type of, for me, I feel like as a president or a person running for president, you should refrain from those type of things like name calling, things like that. The same way I would say the Democrats need to refrain from calling him Hitler-esque and all the things that they've called Trump. For us, YouTubers or TikTokers, we can say whatever the hell we want. We're not running for president. If you look at right now, the way the world is, the reason why a lot of people genuinely have problems with Trump is because he creates attention. He says things like, he's like the guy that says exactly what's on his mind. He does not hold back. And sometimes you need to refrain and hold back. I remember when he first started running again for this election cycle, he came off very calm, very relaxed, very a different approach. And then now we're starting to see, as we're nearing the end of this cycle, that Trump is coming back. He's coming back with a force, and I hope with a vengeance. And I'm saying that nicely because I remember many of times, and even Joe Rogan asked in the podcast, are you going to go after them like they did you? And I think that's an important question to ask. But at the same time, I'm glad that Trump refrained from even answering it fully. He didn't really state what he would do. He just said that he thought it was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, he has alluded to the fact of it being tacky and tasteless, and that they did that they would stoop so low as to put people that they disagree with behind bars. And so that brings me to today's news. We just heard that Bannon was released a week early, and I'll just read what they said here, that Steve Bannon is released, and this is from NBC News, and it comes at a crucial time, right? This is right, we got 7 days or something left to the election, and he served a 4-month stint behind bars. That's a long time for somebody that, in my opinion, is just, here's the thing. I know so many people who are politicians, celebrities that are accused of these exact things, probably guilty of these exact things that most of these people like Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, all of them have done. But they will never see a day behind bars because money, connections. Many of the Democrats and many of the people on the left has weaponized the justice system. It's crazy because the entire 4 years of Biden's presidency will be remembered as a joke. It will be remembered as a presidency that was just hyper-focused, in my opinion, on Donald Trump and not the American people. In fact, people are paying more at the gas pump. They're paying more for food. They have less money in their pocket. Our infrastructure crumbling. We saw Joe Biden today giving a speech in front of the bridge that collapsed. And I'm thinking to myself, America's in shambles. We need a business person. We need somebody that understands how to bring jobs back, how to make money, right? How to build the wealth of this country back up, because we are in debt. We're on the brink of collapse. And I agree with Bannon. Bannon said, he says, if we do not win, first of all, they will shred the Constitution. It is the death of the constitutional American Republic we know. And Bannon told the New York Times in an interview on Tuesday as he left the correctional facility today, and this is October 29th, he said that he would encourage Trump to once again prematurely declare victory. He said he should stand up and say, hey, I have won this. And we have teams right now that are going to make sure that this thing is not going to be stolen, is what he told the New York Times. So I disagree with that. I believe that you should not declare victory until victory has been won. I wouldn't go around saying that and declaring victory. That's what Hillary Clinton did. And remember what happened to her. Be confident in the fact that the American people know what's going on, and we're sick and tired of it. Many of us have casted our votes for the first time for a Republican candidate because it wouldn't make logical sense to put Kamala Harris, who has not only been side by side with Joe Biden for the last 4 years, but has been absent on the border, didn't even show up until after she started running and was given, okay? There was no election process for her to be voted in, right? And we need to figure out what we're going to do in the event that, Kamala does win. What would happen then, America? I leave that to you. Everything I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, aside from, I don't want to go into Fauci and all the things that happened there, but the weaponization, I think, for me, clearly has been the biggest precursor to what's to come. And I'm not scared. I mean, I have faith in my Lord Jesus Christ. I have faith in God. And I'm a person, I have complete faith that whatever's about to unfold is going to unfold in a way that's going to lead to victory for the people that are good. We have to come to this reality that what happens anyway? Trump runs, he wins. Let's say he operates for 4 years, let's say 2, hypothetically, because, all along the time, if he does win, let's just say he's had 3 attempted assassinations on his life up to now. You think they're going to just let him just take that office and not try to put out any more assassinations on him? No. So let's just say he has another few years in him and he gives us a great America. You don't think they're going to try again? Are we going to have another person as tough as Trump that is willing to step up? I doubt it. I truly doubt anyone will want to put their life on the line like this again. And I think this is what this entire thing was intended to do. It was to basically make it so anyone who steps up to this machine that's operating in the background is fearful and says, I don't want to risk my business. I do not want to risk my family. I do not want to risk my health for this position. It's not that serious. Trump must truly love the United States of America. That's all I have to say. Because there's no way you're going to try to kill me 3 times, all right, and snipe my ear off, and I'm going to stay in that position. It wouldn't be me, but I will just say, you guys tell me what you think is going to happen in the next few years. And remember, always, have a great day and think for yourself.